Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Get Out a Rap. Once again, I am joined by Danny Wardell of Alvaria. We promised you a part two. We caught up last week, and great response to that first episode where Danny took us through his career up to a point, but a lot of the learnings. And we thought, you know what, let's carry this on. And again, another similarity between us both is we were both agents. And I wondered, Danny, the extent to which your time being an agent in a contact center, the impact that's had on you, and kind of how you reflect on that, and how you see that to date, like where we are right now in this kind of changing environment that we call contact centers.
Yeah, do you know what? You don't, until you reflect, you don't always get the chance to realize just how much you draw on from that experience. But there's a number of contact centers I've been into the last few weeks, and I leave them contact centers thinking not a lot's changed in the last 20 years from when I was an agent. Um, and in some respects, some of it's gone backwards slightly, I think. But I definitely draw on the experience of being an agent probably in every pursuit or conversation I have, either with my team that I support or to provide insight into the contact centers that we work with, either existing customers or prospective customers. And I often draw back on that experience of what it was like to be an agent. You still hear single pane of glass being the nirvana of contact center. And that's the same conversation we had 20 years ago. More difficult now with a number of tools. But I often think that the agent experience does get lost in this world of customer experience. Yeah, I definitely draw on it a lot. I definitely look back on my time as an agent and look at the things I did to cheat the system, as any agent does. Your first few weeks is all about delivering the best possible service. You do the best you can. But like everybody else, you drop into working rhythm mode and you drop into getting the day done, like you starting your shift and ending your shift and getting home and switching off. And you find ways to do it quicker, do it more effective. And in most cases, your aim is to try and get to the next call and get to break. Get from break, fill the gap, get to dinner. And it goes back to the school days. You deal with what's the next thing I need to focus on, well, it's break time. Then after break, it's focus on get to lunchtime. After lunchtime, it's focused on get to second break time, and then it's home time. And I think, I bet if you did an audit of agents, I imagine that's a big part of the mindset of the majority of contact center agents out there, whether they're inbound or outbound.
100%. I mean, I did some work with some agents recently and said, you know, what are the name three things that really help you at work, make you happy at work? Number one was team, but breaks was actually there in the top three for most of the groups.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we overlook that. You make a really interesting point though. Do you think, from what you've seen, because there's more tools, that the job has got harder from when you did it?
Yeah. I actually compare this to Formula One in some respects. For any of the fans that are into Formula One, you watch a Martin Brundle who gets the
Yeah.
luxury of driving some of these modern Formula One cars. And he talks around the current Formula One stars will say, I don't know how you change gear all the times. And you had all the manual change gear around Monaco, I think 180 gear change a lap, whatever it is. I don't know how you did it. And he sits there and goes, I don't know how you fiddle all these buttons, like changing brake bias and the number of switches and engine modes. Like, I don't know how you do that and still drive the car. And I think the contact center agent's quite similar in terms of they've got to deliver, in some respects, customer experience is more valued nowadays. They're expected to deliver a higher level of service to some extent, but they have so many more distractions. I won't call them tools all the time, 'cause I think tools are something that help you do a job. I'm not quite sure all the applications that an agent use actually make the job any better. I just think they create more distractions. I don't know about yourself, mine, but one of the best inventions that's ever come out for me is transcription. Being
Mm.
able to transcribe a note take without having to sit there and write. Um, And that's something that pops up on your screen and it's on the right hand side and it's a bit of a distraction to start with when you're getting used to it. And then I think for agents, they have so many variations of that, of things popping up, things reminding them, scripts, nudges if they've not said the right compliance statement or whatever that would be. I think it's made the job harder because I think you've got to multitask a lot more.
Yeah. Oh well, transcription is a really interesting one. I know certainly from my own experience, especially when you felt under pressure. You know, the whole title of this podcast is "Get Out of Rap" because it was said
Yeah,
to me so many times that I felt rushed, and I could write a set of notes. The same customer could come back to me the next day. I'd be reading the notes that I wrote, and I didn't understand them. So the automation now that is able to take what we've spoken about, summarize it, and give it to me, give it to the next person that has to deal with that customer, I think is only a good thing. But I really do agree with you on the whole distractions. And I think generally speaking, one of the things that we need to guard against is kind of like overstimulating agents.
yeah.
I mean, that could apply to all of us in the world anyway, but it's very hard to focus on a customer and be present in a conversation, one that you may have done a lot of times anyway, but when you're having to navigate five or six different systems just to be able to do what the customer requires,
Yeah.
I think kind of that has to be a key objective for people, is to give agents the space to be able to engage with customers.
But I think, but if contact center's got any better, like I think I'm a
Mm.
consumer like you, and I think of the people I contact, and I'm actually in the process of speaking to estate agents, which in some respects it's a mini contact center. You go for an auto tenant, an IVR, try and get through to somebody. Is that experience any different today than what it was for me 20 years ago by my first house? No. If I want to call Vodafone or O2 or a network, I will single one out to upgrade my phone or to add remove a bar to change something. Is that any easier now than 20 years ago, having worked in a network contact center? No. So I often wonder what all these tools they spend money on, like what do they actually do? Because in reality, I don't think the customer experience over the last 20 years has improved with the world of CCaaS and with the world of technology evolving at the pace it's evolved. I don't see a better customer experience, a more personalized experience in 2026 than you did in 2006. And I don't know what your opinion on that is, but I just don't see it. In the main, I think you've got pockets of organizations that provide unbelievable service. And I don't always think they're the ones that spend the most money on technology, but they're the ones that probably dig into the detail of their data and information and understand the queries they deal with on a daily basis to try and find a turnkey solution that evolves it and makes it better. I think a lot of times you're seeing shitloads of data and no insight, no
Mm.
information, or not knowing what to do with that data to improve your overall either agent experience, customer experience, or let's be honest, in a lot of cases, improve bottom line. Because a lot of that's always masked by we want to provide a better experience. In reality, businesses want to make more money.
What an interesting question. Have we got better? So funny because I agree. I agree. I'm not sure you could say overall we have, but I wonder, is it because it's got harder at the same time? What do you think? What if we haven't got better? Why do you think that is?
So I don't think we've got better in general. I'm not saying not picking on an individual contact center, but I think in general, my consumer experience is I don't believe my experience calling a contact center or messaging a contact center is any better than it was 20 years ago. In addition, I think the reason it's not going to be better is because I think there's been an influx of tools and platforms that's become an all-you-can-eat buffet. I use quote steal that. Michael Judd, our CEO, uses this a lot. If you look at the sort of evolution of CCaaS, it became this all-you-can-eat buffet. We do everything you want us to do. You can choose which bit you want to consume. That doesn't always mean you're choosing the best technology. It means you're probably making your or your supply chain management less complex. You've probably got this single throat to choke when something doesn't work, but it doesn't mean you're getting the best individual piece of a contact center by buying it from one overarching CCaaS vendor. So, and that's why I think it's not improved. I think elements of inbound have improved. I think I think IVRs have improved. I think IDMV's improved. I think self-serve and FAQ stuff's got better. But the analytics that you get from that CCaaS vendor may not be as good as buying it from an analytics business or a BI business that specializes in just that. The outbound is probably been compromised because the outbound or the dialer or the outreach solution from that CCaaS vendor isn't as good as somebody who specializes in it. It's probably not people rushed to cloud and went to this public cloud world where we've had outages and you've had real data security issues and compliance issues. You've only got to look at down detector and them sort of sites to look at how often that occurs. And people rush to move off premise because it's saving infrastructure costs to move into public cloud when public cloud probably wasn't mature enough at the time to be where it needed to be. And I think when you add all that together, you end up compromising lots of your contact center because of the buying strategy you've made in terms of trying to collapse into one buying pursuit. And I was in that world. I promoted it, I sold it, I lived and breathed it. But I lived and breathed it from a technology perspective. And I definitely tried to live and breathe it from an agent and customer experience perspective. Because you can't sit there and say, by the way, we're great at everything, but we're really rubbish at these three elements, go by that elsewhere. You get fired. But I think being really honest and being authentic, if I look at the CCaaS vendors I've worked for, they've been brilliant, but not been brilliant at everything. And I look at the world I'm in now at Alvaria, that I've been in twice. We're not a CCaaS vendor. We don't profess to be. We don't want to be. It's not a world where we really want to try and promote. We specialize in compliant outbound orchestration. That's what we're good at. If a customer based on that outreach wants to call back in, we serve to it, but it's not our specialist area, which is why we looked at the relationships with Zoom and so on, because they do specialize in that inbound customer journey and that IVR set, that auto attendant, that self-service FAQ inbound experience, but they don't specialize in the outbound side. So I think for that reason alone, people have gone like the old term jack of all trades, master of none, I think comes to mind a lot in contact center. I think the market pushed contact centers to go down the jack of all trades, and they've realized they've become masters at none of it. And you spend time in some contact centers, how often do you see wallboards? Show information, sorry, that show data and no information. They'll show average handling time of 9 minutes. 9 minutes doing what? The wallboard doesn't tell you what that 9 minutes is spent doing. It might tell you got 200 calls in queue. And I go back to my O2 days, calls in queue was bad. And I do recall days of 200, 300, 400 calls in queue. Bear in mind we're a 5,000 person contact center, so maybe that wasn't the numbers probably proportional. But if you had 500 calls in queue because they can't figure out how to change manual network selection when they're abroad on a Nokia 6210, it's not a great calling queue to have because it probably means that you've not managed something at the front end or you're not prepared them to run. That's probably not great examples of having calls in queue. But what if you had 500 calls in queue that's all queuing to buy a £500 iPhone? Are they good calls in queue? I'd argue they are. I'd rather 500 people queuing to buy something than 500 people queuing to complain about something. A wallboard doesn't tell you which that is.
No. I mean, you've taken me right back to my kind of operational management days. We're trying to navigate and gently educate senior leaders who would look at a board and bark at you.
Yeah.
That average handle time is a really interesting one because they were looking at that thinking we were wasting money. I was looking at it going, I'm assuming we're doing the right thing by the customers there. We're not just saying, oh, by the way, what do you think about the World Cup at the moment? Do you want to have a chat about that? We were actually doing our job, and this was a reflection of where we were with our job. Of course, it needed investigation, but I think you make so many really good points. And my a lot of my background is outbound, and I wonder, especially with your customers, do you see there being an evolution, certainly an understanding of people appreciating that outbound isn't just sales and collections and things like that, but when you get the right information as opposed to just data, you can actually proactively contact customers from a customer service point of view. Are you seeing more and more of that?
Not at the rate that I'd hope to see it. I think you are seeing it is starting to increase. I think when you look at some of the predictions the analysts make, you'd expect it to have been, although I know the analysts a lot of time are a pay to play model, but you see a lot of these statements of where the market's going to go. I've never really seen that come to fruition. I've got a couple of points that I could probably raise in that. Number one, I don't think we're seeing it at the rate we should be seeing it because I think salespeople and account managers and CSMs no longer spend time in the contact center. That's something I've brought to me since I come back to Alvaria. Like Lewis and Josh today, and I know you've met Lewis on a podcast. They're at a contact center in Scotland at the moment because one of my big pushes is got to go do some chairside.
Mm,
Lewis has never done chairside, he's never been an agent, so he's learning loads along the way, and he's buddying up with Josh, one of our other guys who's more experienced, who knows what to look for, and they're not going there looking to try and find things to sell. This is an existing customer. They're going to look and find areas where we can help them improve on the technology they've already got. So I think one, I don't think enough organizations do that. I think they spend so much time dealing with the buying personas of contact center software, they forget to go and spend time in the contact center to understand the operation. Number two, I think that contact centers for the last 5 to 10 years have tried to stop everyone from calling in. It's become harder and harder to find a number to call to get to a contact center. They force you down a route of self-serve, chat. And I don't know about you, but every time I join a chat, I end up having to say, speak to an agent, because the chat doesn't give me what I need. And I've had
other.
something with a train booking. Like I needed to change my train booking. It wouldn't let me change it online. I had to go on chat because I couldn't find a number to call. I had to go on chat, speak to the bot, which was very helpful to a point, and then it kept telling me to go back to the same page I've been on to rebook this train. It wouldn't work. So I had to eventually type, speak to an agent. Then it asked me to summarize what I want to speak to an agent about. And I'm like, you've just captured the 20 minutes of conversation here. So I had to do that again. Agent then comes online and asks me what I want to ask me for what my query is, even though the agent has said he spent the last 5 minutes reviewing the transcript, but then said, how can I help you? And I'm like, are you kidding me? You just spent 5 minutes reading the transcript and you're asking me why you need to help me. Um, and I think until organizations really care about the service delivery, and that's an example, I think they're a long way off turning that into outbound orchestration. But I'll give you a good example of it and where it can work really well. Because of traveling over the years and the amount of traveling I've done, I've been lucky enough to become a gold member on BA, which does give you like a VIP service. And I went to Dubai in January. My in-laws had never been. So me and my wife and my in-laws went to Dubai. It's flat and we thought they'd like it, of which they did. Stayed there for 10 days. And on the day we're checking out, I think we were getting picked up by the minibus taxi, whatever you want to call it, like 6 a.m. the Monday morning to fly back to the UK. So flying to Dubai is generally a night flight out. Flying back tends to be a day flight because of the time difference, like the opposite to the US. In the hotel, you don't pay for anything. It just goes in your room. So when it comes to checking out, you pay your bill. And because we're checking out so early and getting picked up so early, we've been playing cards at the table in the hotel at night time. I said, I'm going to go check out the room now and pay the bill. So that on the morning, we can just drop the keys off. I get to the reception, I pays the bill, I'm walking back to where they sat, and in that walk back from just checking out and paying the bill to getting to the table, this flight had been cancelled. So I get an email that just said, important information, your flight's been cancelled. And there was lots of stuff going on in the Middle East at that point, but nothing had really bubbled over yet. I'm like, kidding me. So sits down at the table. So let's go back to the room then. I'm going to get my laptop out and look at what other flights are available. So in between walking from this table to the room, in the meantime, I had a WhatsApp from British Airways, the gold member, from an individual person who'd confirmed the flight booking reference, confirmed the week passenger detail. It changed our flight, not to the next available flight, the one after that, because he wanted to make sure the four of us in one party could still sit together in the class of service we'd flown in. He'd rearranged the taxi to pick us up before the new flight and cancel the existing one. He'd spoken to the hotel, done another night extension on the hotel, included the evening meals, so we're half board, and give me a form to fill out that said if I fill the form out because of the time, because of the delay, we can claim £540 or something per passenger. So over £2,000 back. He reached out to me, like he dealt with it all for me, offered me to communicate back with him if I didn't want that flight, or the only thing he couldn't deal with was my car parking at Heathrow because that's for a different company. But everything else he dealt with proactively. But if I'd have been a BA bronze member or blue member, I wouldn't have got that service.
Mm.
It tells you you can offer that service and you can provide that service. And that for me would make me return to BA over and over again because I got a great experience. So it tells you the technology is there to do it. It tells you the organizations that want to do it do it. So it tells you that it's not run at the pace it should be running because the choice is not to provide that service. And I always ask the question, why? Why would you not want to give the best possible service to somebody who can potentially continue to repeat revenue with you over and over again? And the answer generally comes down to there are technology today that is 90% designed for inbound and it's not geared towards providing the same level of service in outbound. And that's why I believe in what we do at Alvaria. For that reason alone, is because that's what we are designed originally to collect revenue, to sell somebody something, to make the most of an agent's time, an idle time, to make sure that when they speak to people, it's because they're connected and they've answered at the right time of day. But you can use that technology in so many other ways to provide unbelievable service that create a real loyal customer base. They don't because they don't have the tool today, and the tool they've got doesn't support it.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you just told a story where you are acting as marketing for BA right there. Right there.
Yep.
And that's what's possible. I think you raised really good question around the kind of levels of service. It's kind of like, well, we know we can do this and we can do it really well, but not for you.
And I always remember that advert for banks, and I think it were brand new customers only. It's got this like best mortgage rate. And you still see that quite a bit in insurance, but I see so much bad press on BA. And the reason I think you see bad press and examples where I give it great press is that they deal with different class of customers differently. And I'll never understand that. I get why you'd
Mm,
want to give loyalty to somebody who travels with you so much more. And no doubt, like me, spends so much more than the average person who flies on a holiday every year. I get why I may get some extra perks. Maybe I'm the first in the queue to get bumped to a better class. Maybe I get a priority to get on board the plane quicker. But why should I get better customer experience? I
mm,
should. The person that's flying BA Gold versus BA Bronze on that flight probably paid the exact same amount of money. Why give me the amazing service and give the guy that spent the same money as I have a lesser service? I just never understand it. But it goes back to my point that it comes down to having the right tools to do the job. It comes down to knowing how to proactively reach people to deliver great service. And I think I always use this example. if you go to America, and I know that you've been mine, the service you get in restaurants, the service you get in petrol stations or gas stations is a far cry from the UK. And it is. You've got to go spend big money in the UK to get great service. You've got to go to Lucky Cat, and they'll charge you 15% on top of the bill for the service that you've not chose to tip for you. The mindset of service in the US is so different to the mindset in the UK when it comes to service. Um, and if you look at the US as a market demographic, there's so many more outbound contact centers in the US ratio-wise per capita than what there is in the UK. And not all them US contact centers are selling you something or trying to collect a bill from you. They are using it for proactive service at a higher ratio over there. Why? Because service is seen as a loyalty award. It's seen as something that if you deliver great service, you'll create repeat custom. I look at the mindset in the UK, and it's not just UK, it's more across Europe as well. How hard does your insurance provider try to retain your business every year? They don't try very hard.
No.
It's yeah, the
Makes
guys
you feel
that
like you've been disappointing.
exactly. I've just mine came up in January and I got like a 25% increase, and I'm like, I've not made a claim for car. I've been driving again 20 years or so. I've never crashed a car. I've never made a claim for damage in a car. Yeah, I seem to be a customer that no one wants when it comes to car insurance.
Get rid of him.
And and it gives me the challenge I to go back onto filling all these forms in, trying to remember all the information about your car and everything like that, to go find a renewal quote, to go get it 50 quid cheaper somewhere else with a de facto rated insurer. And I think to myself, why does the insurance business not just want to retain me? Surely it's easier, more cost effective to get me to renew than to find a new customer that you don't know anything about,
Mm,
that's completely new to your insurance. I'll never understand it. There's probably some nuance in insurance that I don't know, but customer experience wise, it's a really bad customer experience. And it goes. I always come back to this. I know this central point of. I think we see service as expensive, and I would challenge anybody in any business today to tell me how it's expensive, because I think they're going to show me lots of data and no information.
mm,
And I definitely want to challenge that status quo that service isn't expensive, it's cost effective, it delivers a great ROI, and it creates loyal, repeatable custom. And if you've got more than one product in your portfolio, then your chance of upsell, cross sell, and product penetration into that base is far easier than trying to find new business. I live in a world
100%.
today where I've got existing customers and we've got new business we want to try and win. Which is the easiest? Well, Josh and Lewis are in an organisation up in Scotland that I know for a fact they'll find opportunity doing the right thing. They're not going looking for it, they're going to look at where they can provide gains. That will generate opportunity at a far lower cost than trying to hunt down new opportunities in net new logos. It's hard.
Yeah.
Why not treat and provide a better experience to your loyal customer base than you do a new customer base? I'll never understand it. It'll
No,
never
me neither.
make sense to me.
Me neither. You mentioned that 2006 contact center, and here we are in 2026.
Yes.
I agree with you. I think you could take that 2006 contact center, drop it into today, and it would do okay. It wouldn't stick out like a sore thumb. But so what do you think if we jump ahead 20 years? Will contact centers be that much different from what they are now?
Uh, um, do I think they'll be different right now? I think the writing's on the wall. No, actually, let me rephrase that. The opportunities there for in 20 years to be so much different with the evolution of AI and what it can bring. But I don't believe that AI can ever replace the human. Um, and I just don't. I think it can definitely make the job easier for an agent. It can definitely take away some of the repetitive, mundane elements of customer experience. Do I ever see it fully replacing it? No, I don't. And I'd say the same for AI in a number of worlds. Like I think I mentioned it in my last call. I'm an early adopter of AI. I spend about £120 of my own money a month on subscriptions for my AI toolkit. I use different types of AI for different things that I want to do. And my wife, because I adopted it as well. And I've got three daughters, one buying a house, one going to university, one just finished GCSEs yesterday. And my wife started to use it to like group chats to say we've got a conflict in the house, like, or how do we fund university for our middle daughter going to uni? What are we going to fund versus what she's going to fund? And me and my wife come from two different ends of the spectrum here. My wife is all about giving her the best opportunity, paying for it all, and I'm like, that's not how I learned. I didn't get anything for free, and my work ethic, I think, has definitely shone through in my career. I don't want to just give her it all for free because I don't want a world where she believes there's no consequences. If I go back to my phone bill and
Mm.
have the consequence of that phone bill and having to pay it back, like I learned something. So my wife starts to use ChatGPT to say, this is where I'm at, this is where my husband's at, what do you think? And you know, it just doesn't work. And I don't think it'll ever work because it doesn't understand emotion the same
Are
way.
you only saying that because it sided with her?
Do you actually know? The funny side is it sided with me, but um, I'm well aware that when it comes to, if I look at my dynamic of parenting, I dip in and out because I work long hours. My wife's in it every day, full time every day, all the highs and lows. I sometimes get the lows, I sometimes get the highs, but I'm not around the kids every day. I'm not around them like my wife is. I travel more, I'm away more. My wife's the glue, I suppose, that keeps all our family sort of together. And I think when I give it my opinion on something, it jumps to my side. My wife gives it her opinion, it jumps to her side. And then in the end, it finds where it wants to sort of align with. And it tended to agree with me. Um, but it fundamentally it sort of misses some key elements my wife raises around my middle daughter and some of the challenges that she has. And to the point where my wife left the group chat because it just wasn't helping. I actually said to her, you're only leaving because it's agreed with me, which wasn't the case. I definitely wanted to get that sort of that one over. But I think what it highlighted to me was it doesn't really recognize emotion, and it can make mistakes, it can make errors, just like a human can. But I don't think it's ever going to be at a point where it can understand. For example, like one of the things I've learned these is things like I learned this at Mendic, something called PCM, which is about personality profiles, and people are different colours, and they have a base colour and they have a colour they're in right now, based on the type of personality you are through numerous tests. I could go in ChatGPT and say, can you write an email to Martin? Because I know Martin's PCM profile is yellow, that he will understand. And it'll write something and it'll do it based off textbook. It doesn't mean it'll land with you at the moment you're in that day. It'll base it on a static set of or a static environment.
Mm.
And it did not guarantee to land, but it will write it as if it knows what it's talking about, and it doesn't. So if I go back to the point you made earlier around the contact centres, I feel like I deviated a bit there. Do I think they'll be different? Yes. Do I think it'll be much different? No. And I go back to 20 years ago. There's been more revolution in the last 20 years than I think there will be in the next 20 years. And when I was a contact centre agent in 2006, I had a VCC soft phone. I had no physical turret, or we had BT Meridian when I first joined with the phone on desk that went. The tape desk went, or the tape decks went, where the supervisor used listening calls with you with a double jack and both having a headset in with a tape deck. That all went. In 2006, I was using a VCC contact center tool, which was web based, a little toaster on the bottom right of the screen. You could move it around where you wanted. I used a web-based DICE CRM, which was an original Martin Doll system, originally in Talking Windows, it went to web-based, that did screen popping. When the number were recognized, it brought the person's details up. It was all in a single screen. You could add, move and change, you could make edits, you could write notes real time. And anything that you did in terms of notes that required follow-up, it had actions that it would raise. So if you were doing a SIM change, you would process a SIM change request in the platform there and then. It'd hit a queue, and within 2 to 24 hours, the SIM change would go through. So I was in a single screen using a VCC soft phone 20 years ago. What's different today?
Mm.
We're still on a web-based platform. In some cases, people are still using thick clients. Mainly using soft phones. Nobody's using hard phones on the desk. We had headsets, chargeable headsets, and they were wireless. They weren't wired. I think they were Jabra or Polycom back then. We had wall boards that were in real time. Our call recordings and our QA was done in the system and the platform. It wasn't a separate form you had to fill in, or you have to sit with your team leader or your manager and go through listening to recordings on a tape deck. It was all done through the desktop. We had coach and monitor, so my supervisor could barge into a call, he could listen and call, he could whisper feedback to me while the call were going on. I don't see a change.
No.
Other than transcription and maybe some of the analytics and I don't see much of a change. Technology is there though. If people want to do 100% of QA, they can do that today with products out there like Success KPI that we work with. Their product allows in real time 100% QA. It's got AI that will advise on coaching, and it will advise on next best actions and everything else. But people are still not buying it wholesale and still not using it because everyone's still trying to run the contact center with the lowest bottom line. And AI won't come cheap. There'll be an ROI to it, but it's not like it's going to be a replacement cost. It's another cost. It's not going to replace the contact center. So you're still going to have all your current costs. You're then going to invest into a new technology that provides some AI capability that no doubt delivers an ROI, but it's another tool you're going to have. So I think in 20 years' time, I still think you'll have agents sat at a desk with a headset in, delivering customer experience verbally. I still think that'll be there in 20 years' time. And I don't think it'll be a world different from what it is today.
Sounds like we could do an episode of like a version of Back to the Future. You...
Yeah, definitely. And that doesn't mean that the world's not going to move on. It doesn't mean there's not going to be a different experience. It doesn't mean I don't believe in AI. I do believe in the power of AI. I believe it's got a place. A lot of our strategies designed around utilizing AI and making things more efficient and hopefully giving a better customer experience. But I think if the last 20 years to go by, I'd argue what's going to fundamentally change. Like I've been hearing about driverless cars for the last 20 years.
Mm.
I don't know if you watch Clarkson's Farm, but he said something that I'd already thought. I can get a train to London today for a reasonable amount of money. Because I'm on the right side of the coast. I think the west coast is not as reasonable. But I can get on a train in 2026 and I can get my laptop out and I can attempt to work. I can't really do Teams calls because of the tunnels and the connectivity is not great, but I can definitely do work. I can definitely log into Salesforce. I can send emails. My other option is I could drive and I can make and take calls, but I can't physically work. I can't type on my laptop. The other option is I could get a driverless car that gives me the same experience as a train, but maybe doesn't stop. But it can't take me to a supermarket and do my shopping for me. If I wanted to take me to the supermarket, I'm going to get out the car, go to the shopping, come back, get in the car. At which point, I may as well have drove. It's not tiring to drive. It's not the exertion of driving is getting dressed, getting up, getting out to drive, and getting in the car. The actual driving side of it is not difficult. So what's driverless going to offer me? And there's been so much noise around driverless and it being more safe and more efficient. In the last 20 years, I don't think we're seeing anything that presents any evidence to support that it's more efficient or it's safer. You go to the US and then you go to San Francisco and you do see these driverless taxis. which is maybe that's a way in the future, but that doesn't replace all cars, which is the sort of the tokened noises that you hear. Like there's certain things you just can't replace. It's not going to go, and it doesn't understand that I'm in the mood for pizza today. So I'm going to go to a supermarket with a list. How many people that listen to your podcast go to a supermarket with a list and just buy what's on the list?
Yeah.
See something that takes your fancy, you buy it.
Yeah.
You treat yourself that you didn't have on your list. AI can't do that. Can't replace that side of it. So although I think it is revolutionizing the way that we work, I don't think it's an evolution.
Mm. It's certainly going to be interesting. And I think we do have a great opportunity, but to your point around driverless car, is it just a train? Just because we can doesn't mean that we should. It, is it fundamentally going to solve a problem, accelerate our progression, allow us to do better and more interesting things? And I think that same logic applies for contact centers and customer experience and what we're doing. Danny, again, this has been fascinating. Time has disappeared. I think we should just do some regular ones. We should just sort of catch up regularly and just kind of put the world to rights and hear some more of your fascinating stories if you'd be up for that.
Yeah, definitely up for it. And I think it's for anybody listening, I think from my perspective, doing the last two podcasts, one, my opinion isn't always right. It's my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right in everything. But I definitely enjoy putting your thoughts out there and seeing people's opinions. The feedback on the first podcast was really positive. I'd be interested in the feedback of this podcast because there'll be so many people out there that work for AI businesses that go, I think you're wrong, and I think I've got a different opinion. I'd love to hear it.
Mm,
I'd love to be proved wrong in some of my observations. And I'd love for any contact centers listening to this to really sit there and look at how they're operating today and really ask themselves the question of are they operating in the best interest of the customer? Because I think if they are, my challenge would be a technology stack doesn't support it. And the example I use for this, Martin, as we wrap up is how many people out there have Range Rovers and how many people out there drive them off road?
yeah, not
I'm not
many.
saying they're a bad car and they're a very comfortable car, no doubt, but the Range Rover designed to go off road. Yeah, everyone buys them as the status symbol. And if you're doing that in your own personal life, what are the chances you're doing that in your work life? What are the chances that you're buying the brand, not the capability? And I think that's for me where contact center stalled over a number of years is people have got drawn into buying brand as opposed to buying what actually is suitable for their organization.
A great analogy. And for those of you watching, you can see that Hugo is telling me he wants
Yeah,
to he wants to
yeah,
he wants to go out. He's had enough.
his exit is stage left.
He's like, okay, well, I'm done. But that is a great analogy to draw this episode to a close. Danny, thanks so much for giving up your time and coming on again. And I think that's a great shout out, by the way, is just to engage with Danny, have a conversation, because it's those conversations about how we progress, right? If you agree or disagree, I know Danny, he's volunteered there. Have a conversation, get in touch, and just make sure you don't use AI because you'll lose.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Cheers,
Danny,
Matt. I appreciate it.
thank you so much. Has he finished? Let's go.